Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. So we're going to be going through the new polling data that just came out. I mean, there's a long list of it, and it's going to be a pretty short video. We're just going to go through it, and I'm going to be doing this every couple days actually, because new polling numbers are going to come out very, very fast. They're going to be a lot more accurate than where they were a year ago, and they're actually going to have some indications for 2018, and we're going to see how they change over time, because I don't want to make a video about this now and wait a month and things drastically change in almost every race, and then I'm going to have to come back, analyze it again, and honestly, I'd much rather do that in increments of days, because again, that would be something that would be much better, because polls change more than just once a month. But in terms of the Senate predictions, those will be every 2 weeks, and then the gubernatorial elections every 2 weeks as well. And then enough talking about that. But we're going to look at these polls, and we're going to see things that are actually pretty good right now for both the Democrats and the Republicans in some races more than others. So right now we're looking at our latest polling numbers, and the first thing that pretty much jumps out at you is that red text from the Florida Senate race. Shows Rick Scott ahead by 6% with 45% of the vote, and Bill Nelson at 39%. Those are very good numbers for the GOP candidate. Obviously, he hasn't won yet because the primaries come up pretty soon, but when we look at this, his overall average is a 1.5% lead, up 0.3%, but it's still a considerable lead considering that this is a state of Florida, and there currently is a Democratic incumbent senator. So once more polling comes out, I will use all this to pretty much reanalyze what we're looking at come the 2018 Senate elections, and then maybe Florida could possibly flip back to the GOP from my previous prediction. However, when we look at the numbers now, Florida looks pretty good for the GOP at this point in time, considering Rick Scott has now been leading by a larger margin, in fact, the largest out of all recent polls taken on both the Democrat winning and the Republican winning. But that's pretty much the only part where the Republicans are actually doing pretty well. Over in Wisconsin, Tammy Baldwin isn't leading by the greatest amount, but she's still leading. She leads by 2%. This is a state that Donald Trump carried in 2016, and the overall average is her winning by 11% against Leah Vukmir. I guess that's how you pronounce it. But overall, she is winning in terms of the polling numbers here. Before it was a 17-point lead, then 14%, and now a 2% lead. I don't necessarily think that this lead is going to be only 2%. I honestly do expect Tammy Baldwin to expand this lead coming into 2018. I think that this poll could be a little bit different because a lot of people like to point out outliers when it benefits you. Like people like to say that Trump has a 50% approval rating when he doesn't, and every other poll doesn't say that. But when it comes down to it, the Wisconsin Senate race, she probably isn't going to win by only 2%, to be completely honest with you. This is a likely Democratic seat. Right now, the average is 11%. So once more polling numbers come out, I get it. It's been time, but it's only been around 15 days. There isn't really that much time for it to really narrow down to a 2% lead. And even if it is, Tammy Baldwin is already at 49%. So she only needs 1.1% more to win, and a win is a win. But when it comes down to margins, that's what something is a little bit more important. Quinnipiac comes out with a new poll in the New Jersey Senate race. So this is a race that previously gave Bob Menendez a 2% lead over Hugen, and the most recent poll done by Gravis, a 2% lead right here, and now it is a 6% lead. So not that large of a lead, but it is still a leaning Democratic seat. It's an 8.3% lead in terms of the average, but we're pretty much going to disregard this 21% lead because a lot more things have come out about Menendez. This is a seat that is probably going to remain in the Democratic column, and all polling indicates it as well, even though there is an unpopular incumbent senator. In the Minnesota special election, not much to see there. Tina Smith still leads by 7%, but in the Minnesota Senate regular election, Klobuchar leads by 20%. I've seen a couple predictions where people actually put Minnesota in the Republican column. It's not happening. Look at these numbers. And in the governor's race, a lot of people think that, oh, Tim Walz will possibly lose. Well, right now he's leading by 5%. So that is also good news for the Democrats there. In terms of the Florida Republican and Democratic primaries, nothing different than what we expect. Graham is expected to win, and Ross DeSantis is expected to win here, but it's also narrowed down for DeSantis compared to where it was before. But overall, still expected to win between these two candidates, and right now, the only polling between Graham and DeSantis actually shows Graham ahead in terms of polling numbers. But we go over the Wisconsin governor race. Well, Tony Evers right now at 46% and Scott Walker at 46%. So they're pretty much a tie right now. If we look at the numbers, it's a 6.3% average for Evers, but right now Scott Walker actually brought up the margin a little bit. But also there was a poll taken in the almost exact same time frame, just off by 3 days, but they started at the same time, that show the Democrat ahead by 5%, but it was taken in the favor of the Democrats. Emerson shows the Democrat ahead by 7%, and NBC News shows him ahead by 13%. So we're probably not going to see a 13% margin against a not really popular but incumbent Republican in a state that went for Trump in 2016. However, when we look at these numbers, Scott Walker isn't doing the best that he really could be because, again, he is the incumbent, so you have to factor that in as well. In the Illinois governor race, Pritzker has a 16% lead over the incumbent Republican governor, so that is very good. The current incumbent Republican actually has a negative 34% approval rating, So this race you can probably expect to be moving into the likely or possibly even safe Democratic column come future predictions. But the generic ballot poll, Democrats plus 5, Rasmussen, which used to have Democrats up by 7, now a tie, and then Economist/YouGov has the Democrats ahead by 6%. In terms of the president's approval rating, Rasmussen shows disapprove plus 6, Economist/YouGov shows disapprove plus 8, and then congressional job approval, which has never been high, approve 12% and disapprove 66%. Direction of the country actually has narrowed down from where it was before. In terms of the Michigan Senate race right now, Stabenow leads I believe John James by 16% right now, and the governor's race is around the same margin for Gretchen Whitmer over Bill Schuette by a 15% margin. That is a very considerable amount considering Trump won this state in 2016. This is a race that people actually thought Michigan could get close because of Trump's presence in 2016, and the gubernatorial election, which currently has a Republican incumbent governor. The fact that the Democrats are now leading by 15% statewide is something to point out. However, both of them are around 51 to 52%, which means that the Democrats could possibly even expand on that, or the Republicans could still win. Not win. They could bring up the margin to 52 to 48 or 51 to 49, but there still isn't showing a possibility of a win there. However, we can look at the New Mexico Senate race. This is very, very interesting. Martin Heinrich has 39%. Okay, he has 39% of the vote and leading by 18%. But Gary Johnson has 21%, and the Republican candidate has a mere 11%. That is very, very notable. Having a Democratic incumbent governor, I mean, it's really expected that this senator wins by a plurality at this point in time. Gary Johnson, I mean, was the reason why Hillary Clinton got a plurality in the New Mexico presidential election. Obviously, New Mexico isn't, in terms of New Mexico, in the state of New Mexico in 2016, in the 2016 presidential election, Gary Johnson was the sole reason Hillary Clinton got a plurality and not an overall majority over 50%. Martin Heinrich got 39%. Gary Johnson now has 21% of the vote. He is now polling ahead of the Republican. This could hint that the Republican could possibly drop out, but it probably and isn't really that likely. Right now, Gary Johnson has 21%. If you add the Republican, that puts him at 32%. That's still not beating the Democrat. That would still give the Democrat a win by 7% statewide. So that would be pretty good for the Democrats. We aren't seeing much of a turn away from the Democrat winning here. Just it's very interesting to see a Libertarian actually do better than a Republican in a statewide election, but it also is expected. In the New Mexico gubernatorial election, Michelle Grisham leads by 2%. I believe it is Steve Pierce who has 40%, but still 2% lead no longer makes this race a likely race for the Democrats, in fact, a leaning race. But nothing new from what we see in the New Hampshire gubernatorial election. Sununu leads by 15 and 16% in 2 of these polls, so that is very, very good, considering that this race is already rated as likely for the GOP, nothing more than what we would expect. President approval rating, disapprove plus 8, and then disapprove plus 10. And the Wisconsin governor race, again, that same poll that I mentioned earlier, he leads by 5%. So that's pretty much a recap of all the recent polls that were just taken. Overall, the only really shining area for the GOP is probably Wisconsin, where Tammy Baldwin only leads by 2. And then we look at the gubernatorial election in Wisconsin. Again, I mentioned the state of Wisconsin. But then the Senate race here, Rick Scott leads by 6%. That is the largest lead either candidate has had in all the recent polls, and that's a very considerable amount. Even though neither of them are at 50% at this point in time, the fact that Nelson is only garnering 39% of the vote at this point in time, this late into the election season, leading into the primaries, it does not look good for the Democrats in Florida, but for everything else, they are doing phenomenal in Michigan, in Illinois, in Minnesota, in a number of these races. It looks like, even in New Mexico, it looks like the Democrats could be doing pretty well in 2018. So thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I will see you all tomorrow.